stand for the pledge and an opening prayer from Pastor Diane Reed. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's great. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed on this village of Blissfield. We pray for those who are in office, especially Denise and her energetic staff, the council that's here tonight that has governed this village, that they may have made wise and godly decisions, which are always in the best interest of our village. The village is glad that we have the freedom to speak up if we have a concern. Even if we differ from these leaders, we pray for them to be blessed by you, God, and also those who are in law enforcement. We ask them to protect us in their line of duty so that we might protect those of us who have placed our trust in all of them. Father, please bless these men and women in the village office. Denise, our administrator, who has done an outstanding job in office her first year. And we are so thankful for her new direction and her different ideas that she has brought to the village. Thank you for her internal staff, her department heads, and all of you council members. Certainly let me not forget those who put themselves in harm's way for us, our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, and our EMT workers. Father, we also are thankful that you prepare all these folks to care for us here at Blissfield on a daily basis. We give you all the thanks and praise for all of these blessings, and we invite you into this council chamber this evening. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Roll call.
Bill Bed,
Here.
Glenn Houston. Here. James Dyson. Mike Gunner.
Here.
Jerry Hayes.
Here.
Barbara Henry. Here. Timothy Waters.
Present. In the minutes of July 11, 2022.
Motion to approve the minutes of July 11, 2022 as presented.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of July 11, 2022 as presented. Any corrections, questions? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Gary.
Yes.
Barb.
Yes.
Gwen.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes. Minutes are approved. Presentations and communications. Lynn Hunnett.
Very good, Lynn Punnett. Thank you for having me. And thank you to Danielle for hosting me probably over a month ago now when we first spoke. I'm a volunteering community with a group called One Away, and for about 15 years, we've just worked on all kinds of issues related to quality of life, and they vary. But a couple of years ago, we identified housing as what we just wanted to pour into and find solutions. And for those of you that know me, some of you do, I've been working a very long time in housing, affordable housing, but all types of housing, on a construction company. And so this was a natural fit for me to get pretty passionate about. When the American Rescue Plan funds became available, we presented, our group One Away presented a proposal to the county commissioners to fund a number of things, one of those being a housing study. And as you know, all kinds of things have delayed their decision-making process. But our group felt it was so important, we really just can't keep waiting for them. And so the Lenawee Community Foundation stepped up and said, well, we have faith that that housing study will be eventually approved by the county commissioners. We can't wait. And so they contracted a consulting firm, Land Use USA, who Danielle has been in touch with. And I came to meet with her to say that we have to have her permission to give her name to that firm to start working on that housing study. So if you have considered getting a housing study, you know, they cost thousands of dollars. And so we felt like it was really important that this housing study not just be the city of Adrian, not just be the city of Tecumseh, but every single city, village, and township would have an opportunity to learn about the needs and the opportunities and people that are moving in and out, and what opportunities you would be missing out on if you didn't have a certain type of housing, or who might move to your community if you did build a certain type of housing. So we contracted them, and that is going to happen for you for free. So you're going to get what's called a total market analysis for free. We still have faith that the county commissioners will fund it, but if they don't, the Lenawee Community Foundation has stepped up and they're going to take care of that. But fair enough, the county commissioners said to us, okay, you're going to get this housing study, and is it going to sit on a shelf in a binder? And that's a good question, right? That's not what we want to happen, and different communities would probably make different use of it. So we went back to that consulting firm and we said, what normally happens after a housing study, right? What's the next step? And she said, Sharon Woods is her name. She said, well, the next step would be a strategic plan, a housing strategic plan. She gave us names of different firms that she would recommend, and we talked to them, and we chose CIB Planning, which is a Michigan firm. And so we did not ask the county commissioners originally to fund that strategic plan. And so we're going around now, because we think that's really important, and asking each of the municipalities to contribute. That the housing study is $75,000, the strategic plan is $75,000. So we're just asking each community to pitch in. And just briefly, what the strategic plan mostly entails is looking at your master plan. And I think, if I remember right, you're in the process of updating your master plan, right? So, and that's not their job. They're not going to do that for you. I know you have a firm that's going to do that, but they would look at your master plan. They would look at your planning and zoning, and specifically your ordinances, and they would help you identify any barriers in those ordinances, any omissions, how you could beef those up in order to be able to build the kind of housing that the housing study will identify you need for your community. You know, this isn't just about low-income housing or anything like that. You will decide what kind of housing that you want to build here. And so we're here tonight to ask your consideration, and the memo did a beautiful job of summarizing that. And so I won't read that or reiterate that to you, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. And we just thank you for considering pitching in on that second piece, the strategic plan. And so to get a housing study and a strategic plan, which would be many, many thousands of dollars for what Danielle is proposing, is a bargain to say the least.
I do have a question.
Okay.
How did you come about the amount of the 2625 for Blissfield?
I can't answer that, Danielle did.
So I actually took that, if you take the Lenawee County population and our percentage, and then apply that same percentage to the 75,000, that's the percentage of population that would be impacted overall. So that's how I came up with that. Because to me, that made the most sense to say that that's the percentage of total county population that we would directly impact or have an effect on.
Gotcha. And are other communities doing the same, or you don't know for sure that's how they're?
Well, the city of Adrian did the same. They approved last Monday night 15,750. They're the county seat, so they have the greatest population. The village of Clinton gave a little more than their population share. Theirs would have been not even 1,000, but they approved 2,000. Fantastic. Because there will probably be some who say, you know, we're not in, we don't want to build housing. So we appreciate that. The Village of Britain, I met with them 2 weeks ago. 5 of their trustees were present, but 2 were absent. The 5 that were there said, yes, we want to do this. They didn't name an amount. Their population's really small, so their portion would be $600 or $700. But I sensed from them they're going to approve 1,000 or 2,000. So we're just making our way to all these different communities and asking.
And what if you don't get enough of the monies to come up with your total of 75,000?
The Lenawee Community Foundation is gonna make up the difference.
So that
It's already
it's gonna
committed.
be done regardless.
It's gonna be done regardless. It's
Okay.
just, really for them to work directly with you and get your input and what you guys want. We hope you will contribute. And then they'll continue to work with Danielle and whoever she names in terms of planning and zoning and those sorts of things when we get to the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the agenda. Would like to amend it and put a VFD purchase for water treatment plant. I just want to put that at the top of new business. I don't want to. Number it.
Above the accounts payable.
Yeah.
What is what column is? What's this? This paperwork here. Gotcha. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, placing the VFD purchase for water treatment plant as part of the new business, essentially becoming number one. And then the accounts payable number two, is that what you're asking for that?
No, I just would like to just put it above accounts payable, just as the name of it.
Okay. So we will go ahead and amend it to put in the VFD purchase for water treatment plant above the accounts payable in the new business.
I'll support that. Moved and supported to amend the agenda with the VFW purchase for water treatment plant above accounts payable. You call the roll, Lisa?
Mike,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen? Yes. Gary?
Yes.
Barb? Yes. Bob?
Yes. Agenda approved. Move on to public comment items on the agenda. Moving on to unfinished business. Anyone have any unfinished business? If not, there is an item under there, approved engineering services for US 223 water main loop project.
So this item is coming back from the last meeting, where you guys didn't take action so that I could look into the priority list that Mike had referenced. I did talk to him a little bit and I found, I actually do have the binder that has a lot of different infrastructure projects in it that are, I believe, priority projects that we as a village would like to see completed. This project is not in that binder that I could find. And that binder also, it doesn't necessarily, it has the projects, but it doesn't say what their priority level is within like the whole scope of all of them. And I did ask Brent to come here tonight too, in case he has any input or any news, just because he's been here so much longer than I have. But my understanding with this is that it has been talked about in the past. The infrastructure, I do agree with Mike that we need to have a priority list. And what I guess I envision is having something, because there's so many factors when we talk about infrastructure. Like what I think would make sense is to have a list of streets, water and sewer with a priority for the street level, water and sewer, so that when we come to you guys with projects, we can say, that maybe X street is a higher priority, but it also needs water and sewer. And financially right now, we want to jump B street higher because we can't afford that project that's going to cost more, whatever that is, but where you guys can see, and then we can also use that to update and notate where we're at. That's not something that I can do just quickly. And that's something that I'm gonna have to work with DPW and the engineers on and look at that binder that we have in the past capital improvement projects to build that out. But I do still think that this is a valuable project that has been on the list, and I think that it gets us going with engineering, so that we can start going into that rotation cycle, like I mentioned the last time, where we design a project, build and design another project, and keep continuously just chipping away at the infrastructure. And knowing that we're always going to have to work within what we can do financially, but I just would like to see the village start moving forward somewhere. And this is a project that where I think that'll kind of get us off the ground and get us going. And I mentioned this the last time, but right now we don't have any way to isolate the tower without shutting people off. And I don't think that's a good solution if we have to do maintenance or different things like that. But if you have questions for myself or Brent, we would be more than happy to try to answer them.
So Brent, I mean, I think the big question, if I understand correctly from prior, was really that no one was really recalling the loop part of it. And can you just address
We were
that?
gonna we were at one time gonna make a bypass on Sherman Street itself, but it's kind of unfeasible when we can go down here and stop at that end. They do basically where we're taking water samples. At that end, there, back in 2012, there was a 2-inch water main that blew under 2.3. That got captain sealed. So now that makes us, we don't have a loop. So we have to do some valving up by MAC to bring it back.
And or you had talked about this before, right? You do this part with the testing or with the, yes, I remember you talking.
So it's best to, it's gonna cost more, but it's actually gonna stop at dead end line, which that's another thing you would like to see, all dead ends, and then we'll make our loop to the 12-inch main. So that way we can isolate the water down and just keep, basically you lose a small, like 12 customers. So like you lose half on all that, some all got board across on the floor. If you lose, you lose. Or circle. So I'll stop that.
I guess would my question be for future then, would the plan to be to work at the tower and kind of that being the central location and work our way out to the outskirts of the
And then
village?
we're gonna get the engineers involved,
Priority way, okay.
that way we get them involved, this will be their start. This has to, basically, it's easy to get done.
Yeah, it's hard to do that, like in a perfect world. Brent and I were even talking about that this morning, like, I think it was Petersburg went through and redid everything. I'm like, man, that'd be a huge project, but it'd be kind of nice, but realistically, that is gonna cost a small fortune. But that's where I said infrastructure gets complicated, because one year we could say that maybe a water line and the street over in one area is our priority. But then that year, while we start, let's say, designing it or whatever, well, then during that year, all of a sudden we have 12, God forbid, water breaks on a completely different line. And it kind of jumps that forward, and it's just so hard because it's always changing, and you have to factor in so many other things, like especially water and sewer with the streets, because again, we don't want to go tear up a street and then have to go back later and tear up the water or sewer. Or, and same thing, like if a street needs a water and sewer line, we don't want to go do the water, fill it in, patch it up, and then go back and do the sewer, because it's going to be more cost effective to combine those projects. And this is like, we had this challenge even at my last job in Rollins, whenever I presented infrastructure projects to council, because they do tend to change. But I still think if we build that list out and we have an idea, like you're going to see those priorities, or at least be able to see where we've made the changes and then what justification we use to do that. And that's something that I would work on before next budget year, ideally, would be my time frame on that.
That was gonna be my next question, is that, I know it can't be done this year in 22, but for 23, to have that numerical order, but with the understanding that obviously things change.
Yes.
Yeah. But to prioritize.
And I don't want to, again, micromanage you guys. You guys are the ones that are familiar with the infrastructure and whatnot. I just wanted to make sure that we're following, the engineer's plan that we have paid for in the past, and then saying, okay, let's prioritize these projects. And much like you're alluding to, I think that's just gonna set us up for a better long-term, range planning or goal planning and how we're gonna accomplish these. So again, not to say that it's not necessary. I don't want to kick different cans down the road. I would rather prioritize things and get them accomplished and keep everything on the radar. So that's the only reason I held off originally. I don't remember it as being a priority project. So it makes sense when you explain it.
Make a motion to approve the task order for engineering design and survey for the US 223 water main loop in the amount of $21,500.
I'll support.
Moved and supported to approve the task order for engineering design survey for US 223 water main loop in the amount of $21,500. Comments or questions? Now you can call the roll, Lisa.
Carrie,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, the motion carried. Thanks for being here, Brad. Want to moving to new business. You have the BFD purchase for the water treatment plant.
Thank you guys again for amending the agenda. I apologize. I know I've asked you to do that the last couple of meetings, so. I'm gonna defer to Nora, but I'm here for support, Nora, and questions, counsel.
Okay, so we had a long weekend at the water plant. Saturday morning.
Nora, will you go to the podium? Oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry,
Okay.
put you on the spot.
Long weekend at the water plant. So Saturday morning, I got a phone call, our high service pumps. We have two of them and neither of them were running. I was out of town. So, I called and had Randy come in. And Randy helped the guys through. We had UIS come in, one of the VFDs blew.
Who's a UIS?
UIS is our utility instrumentation services. So that's who comes in and does all our programming and puts our equipment together for us. So Randy was here with them, VFD Blue. We had the backup one. So they put that in. By 3 o'clock, they were good to go. Everything was working. They checked it. They knifed the motor again to make sure we weren't getting any bad signals from the motor. Everything seemed good. Sunday morning, same pump was running, 5:45 a.m., 7 a.m. Our operators came in, turned off the pump to collect numbers. Pump would not turn back on and blew the VFD. So that was our backup one. So at that point, they called Randy again. And we have been running with just one pump because we have no backups. And I'm not about to put another VFD in there until I know what's going on. So today I had Kennedy Industries out, which would be one of our pump manufacturers who also initially installed these pumps in the plant in '99. Came out, looked at this pump, and we checked motor, we checked hookup, we checked rotation of impellers, we checked this pump. This pump seems to be clear and good of everything. The VFD's job is when I turn on the pump, it's going to take your pump and not just turn it on 0 to 60. It's going to take your pump and it's going to slowly build your PSI. And so we want it to about 60, 65. What was happening, I wasn't there, so this is what Randy had told me is, as it got to about 50, it went crazy and hit 75 and dropped right back down to 30 to 40. So that's what was blowing the VFD. So at that point, they're thinking there's a programming issue in this VFD. One of those VFDs, our backup one was still under warranty, so one will be taken care of. But there is one we're gonna have to take care of, and that's what I'm requesting tonight, is to get that one done. It has a lead time of 4 weeks. So right now we'll be running on one pump only all day, every day for 4 weeks. That's the expedited option 3 in the That I gave you, expedited repair, 18-month warranty, and a 4-week lead time. The brand new ones, I know last time we talked about just going brand new, it's 8 months out for VFD. So that's why I recommended the expedited one. At the same time, now that it's on their dime and they have to get us a VFD because that one was under warranty, I have 2 guys coming out tomorrow morning to pull the VFD that's still in place. And they are going to also check other different sources coming in, the counter or the case itself that they sit in. And like I said before, we talked about the air conditioning, but this is only happening to the one pump. So I don't think we're moving on that in the budget to get some air in there to help those computer parts. However, I don't think that's the issue at this point for what's happening right now. But to get this ball rolling and to get our 4 weeks starting hopefully tomorrow, we have to get this approved tonight so that we're not out any longer without that redundancy. Because if anything happens to pump 1, I can't send water out to the village. I can clean all the water you want in the plant, but it's not coming out in the village. So, you guys have any questions?
I have one question for you, and I think maybe you kind of answered it. The VFD unit is an electronic component that
Yes.
sits on top of the pump.
No, it's actually almost in like a computer case that sits over to the side, kind of like a control panel.
Right.
And it will take those controls of the pump, and when I ask the pump to turn on, instead of the pump just ramping right up, it's gonna slowly bring that pump up. So it's,
It's separate from where the
yes,
pump is.
it's not connected to the pump itself, no.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And this expedited one is a used one, if you will, is that?
It would be a rebuild, yeah,
A rebuild, okay, so that's the rebuild, and that's why you're staying for the brand new one, it's the 8 months
8
out
months out.
with the larger price tag as well.
Yes, another $6,000.
Okay,
Are they out that far because of microprocessors and that whole situation going on?
Probably, I mean, they got me this at like 2 o'clock today, so I hurried and got it to Danielle, but, so I didn't ask him what, if we, next time if we had that backup, like right now, we usually have that backup and we are comfortable. Right now, we're just on the line pump and we only have time to wait 8 months, so.
So we have 3 in that building generally?
2. Well, yes, 3, we have the backup, so usually we have 2 active and then we'll have a backup.
And 2 of those are blown.
Saturday.
And you're running the
Monday.
backup.
Yep, so round to 1.
And all 3 VFDs are not correlated. They don't run each pump. One VFD doesn't, one per VFD per pump, correct?
Yep.
So again, that leads back to our issue of what's going on? Is it electric coming in? Is it, fluctuating power? Something is obviously wrong, and we need to figure it out because we're
Yes.
dumping more and more money into it.
Yes, and I understand, so we had UIS do the study last, or it would have been like last fall, winter, when we did the energy study. That came up clean. They read through it, our engineers read through it, everything looked clean coming from consumers, and they did that for almost 2 months straight. And then, like I said, now that it's been the same pump twice, I had them come out, look through this whole pump today, as it's not doing anything, and everything checked out there. That's why when UIS comes in tomorrow morning, we're gonna check the cabinet. Is there a short in the cabinet? And there's a lot of parts that are, so I turn on the pump in one building and it's gonna send that signal over to this building, the little building. So there's a lot of things that maybe it's something in the electrical there. We're checking the boxes. We're trying to find it because I don't like these phone calls at all either.
It's really hard to narrow it down because her plant is everything is so dependent on another thing. So nothing at her plant is just independently operating by itself. So it's almost, this sucks, but it's trial and error, and it's just slowly like checking off, okay, it's not this, and moving to the next thing. And it's just a slow process because sometimes, like, it's just hard, you have to almost work backwards and try to find that. And then it's hard too, when it's running normal and things are operating well, it's like nothing is wrong. So then how do you find the issue? And I do agree with you, Mike, and that's, Nora and I, that's what we talked about today is just working towards finding out what the issue is, because the VFD should not be blowing like this, and they're blowing at the same pump, like she said, every time, so it's gotta be something running through that area of the plant. We just don't know.
Well,
what it
it's
is.
not the same pump though, right? This is, we had two separate pumps. or two
Last
separate
year-
municipal today, or this week.
This weekend, they were the same pump.
Same.
So what they did was they took, so we usually have the 3 VFDs, like you said, one's always on number 1. One was on number 2, and then we had the third with a backup in a box. Once that one on number 2 blew, we took the one out of the box, put it on, and that's when we blew it Sunday. So,
I mean, is there a way to isolate that to get engineering out there to say, let's try a different vendor, different type of VFD?
so, they did tell Randy that the VFDs that we have, they have a newer version. So that new one that's 8 months out, there could be some kind of different, something different to the VFD. So I was hoping that that had a shorter lead time and we would have went that way. But once I got this quote at 8 months, I keep.
The one that's under warranty, wouldn't that
Yes,
be the more updated one then as well?
no, those were all rebuilt.
But a VFD is a VFD, I mean,
Mhm.
there's not, it'll be updated, but there's still, VFDs are meant to run hard and continuous, and, I mean, that's their job,
That's
so it blowing is, whether it's rebuilt or brand new, it's something outside of that VFD, I truly think, because again, well, I mean, we had this happen last year, kind of almost in a row, it seemed like last year, where we had one, not this quickly in a row, but I don't remember, it was within
It
a couple
started in
months, wasn't
August,
it?
yeah, August, and then
Was that on the same pump or was that on the other pump?
last year we had one on one and one on the other. And that's when we started doing the energy coming into the building, thinking maybe we were getting power surges, max voltage, something like that from consumers. They weren't seeing any of that. But now to less than 24 hours apart on the same pump, their concern is, so when they program them, it's a program that they pull off of like a laptop and they feed in. My concern is maybe the program's been kind of copied and pasted too many times. You know, how many times have you lost something and copy and paste? So that is gonna be a discussion I have with them tomorrow, is that when we put a new one in, I expect a brand new program in it. All my parameters will be set the way I want them set. Because the VFD should be 2-minute startup, so when I do flip that button, it should take 2 minutes for it to get to that 60 to 65 PSI. I want it to shut off, it would take 2 minutes to shut off, which is good for all of our equipment. So those are things that, with what Randy was saying, he saw it fly up there and then fly back down, maybe that programming was messed up, is a concern I have. So that's something I'm gonna talk to them tomorrow about, but at this point, that's just a theory. And
Well, I'll make a motion to waive the competitive bidding requirements and to accept the quote from UIS SCADA to repair the 60 HP Allen Bradley VFD at the water treatment plant in the amount of $11,125. I'll support.
Motion and a support.
Another quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've got money in your budget to
yes,
cover it?
yeah, there's a few projects that were actually under budget that we did in some capital projects, so we'll be able to move some funds over to that line item and take care of it.
I have one more question. When, do you know when the warranty one is gonna be in?
No, I took pictures, so that one's still in the panel. They're gonna come tomorrow morning and pull that one out, but today I did ask them, is there something I can take a picture of that you can get the ball rolling on this? And they needed like a serial number and all that kind of stuff, so I did that and sent that to them today. So hopefully they've got that working, and I don't know what the lead time was on that one. I'm assuming the same 4 to 8 weeks like the others at least, but
Thank you, Norm.
Yeah, thank you.
I would just highly recommend that we don't drop the ball on this one, because, unfortunately, we're under budget on something else to cover it, but we can't keep doing this. So, is it different vendors? Is it a different VFD that we use? Is it a different pump? I mean, we've got to find an answer. We can't continue like this.
I think you got a game plan there, Nora. I thought you did.
You call the roll on that motion as presented.
Tim,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, and motion carried. And New business accounts payable, one.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable for the period of June 15th, 2022 to July 22nd, 2022, in the amount of $781,966.59.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve accounts payable for period of June 15th, 2022 to July 2022 in the amount of $781,966.59. Are there any questions? I have one on page 1145. Jones Henry Engineering, water treatment plant. Why would those engineers be doing that? We have others.
They work with Manick and Smith.
Oh, okay.
So Manick is, because Jones and Henry is specialized in water and sewer, so Manick Smith partners with them on a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sounds good. Any other questions on those? Great.
I'm just not missing that they weren't in the file, right?
no, they were not. I apologize. I had attached them, but when I downloaded the information to your thumb drive, they did not attach for some unknown reason. And when Gwen didn't email me today about questions, I was concerned because she normally does. And when I investigated it, it was printing off my packet. I realized that it wasn't. And I apologize. I emailed it as soon as I found out and printed one off, so.
Thank you.
This is
And if you
Wednesday.
guys can see
Wednesday
something.
vote
It
tonight.
is. I couldn't believe she didn't message me this weekend, hey, where's my bill question?
Then, any other questions, you can call the roll.
When?
Yes.
Barb? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes, bills are paid. Item number 2, resolution budget amendment for housing and strategic plan. That's the presentation from Lynn. Do you have any other questions, Todd?
Danielle, I know you're making the, you're recommending the motion, but can you clarify of how the, this housing affects Blissfield? Because I'm sure our residents will say, well, why are we doing a housing market for Blissfield? We don't have this much space to put in new homes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Could you clarify why your opinion is we should partake?
Well, one, because we're getting part of it at no cost to our residents. So I think it's important to always try to capitalize off anything that we could utilize. But two, so the housing study I've already been talking with the company that One Lenawee and the Lenawee Community Foundation have contracted with. But they will look at what our needs are as far as in Blissfield. So they'll identify the areas that could be developed, what if we're needing if we need apartments, if we're needing townhomes, if we're needing even assisted living, it could be. So that will help us draw in developers so that hopefully we can get some other projects done or do some infill, maybe where we have properties that could be developed for something even different or more. I've already talked to her, one of her questions are mixed use. You know, does the village have an interest in having commercial on main level and apartments above? And I know that's something that on the DDA level, they've talked a lot about. So I think identifying that for our residents, and it'll answer those questions. And then the second part that we are contributing to is the strategic part. So what is going to make our ordinances more development friendly? So that when a developer comes in and they say, okay, you have this housing study, we're not working against them. We're working with them and giving them those tools to make it appealing and to make it cost effective to come into Blissfield and help grow and develop the community. And we do have areas that could be developed, really.
I remember McKenna, when McKenna, at one of their planning sessions, had talked about some of the areas that we have in our village that we don't always recognize as places for.
Yes, and they're the ones working on our comprehensive plan, which has taken a little bit of a backseat upon my direction to them, because we have, they're also doing the TIF plan with DDA.
Right.
And that was a very strict deadline item that we had. So that took priority, but they'll be getting back into our comprehensive plan, and that will tie into this strategic plan. But why I think this is a good deal for us is, if we did this on our own, there's no way that $2,600 would even begin to cover it. And because I do think that a lot of our ordinances and things are outdated. And if you're a developer and you come to a community, you don't want to have to jump through a ton of hoops, and you don't want things to be more complicated than development already is. And if we can streamline that and make it appealing for somebody, then I think it's worthwhile.
Thanks for that answer.
Yes.
Could I add one comment to her excellent answer? Developers are going to want data. And this is going to give you the data you need to attract the kind of developers that you will identify you want. And so this study is really so valuable to you. For grants too. I mean, there's more money coming down from Congress and the federal government in the coming years than has ever been seen in our country. And housing is on the radar, and there's going to be grants, and you're going to have the tool you need to go after that kind of funding.
Thanks.
Yeah, it is a good tool because, you look at the various, websites, you look at Realtor, you look at Zillow or whatnot, you see the housing stock that we have, and it's really not much. And there's also not a different assortment or different variety or different housing market, on the market here. And in order to continue to grow and thrive, I think we can use that as a tool. We're talking about redevelopment, ready community addition, talking about the DDA, investing and looking for partnerships to purchase properties and develop, the way that they alluded to. So again, yeah, I see it as an awesome tool to utilize, again, to say, well, if we're getting it for, $2,600, again, it's just part of that future planning process, and how do we continue to grow in the right way that we want to.
Well, I move to approve the resolution authorizing the budget amendment in the amount of $2,625 for the housing and strategic plan.
I'll support that.
Moved and supported to approve the resolution authorizing the budget amendment in the amount of $2,625 for housing and strategic plan. Any other comments or questions? Now you can call the roll, Lisa.
Barb? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Gwen? Yes. Bob?
Yes, motion carried. The action item number 3, bid award street crack filling.
I move to award the 2022 street crack filling bid to GT Contracting LLC in the amount of $28,300. Support.
Moved and supported to award 2022 street crack filling bid to GT Contracting LLC in the amount of $28,300. Any questions?
I guess I would just request, like future ones like this, I know we used to have the bid spec or the bid tabulation, just showing what streets were gonna be done and what costs and whatnot. I think just, we don't need to see the one that, well, we used to see the RFQs and we used to see the ones that would come in that we would recommend. So I think that just helps us get an idea of how many streets are being done, what streets are being
And
done.
I can send that to you. I didn't add it because I was trying not to
I
overload you,
get
so I
it. That's why
apologize,
I'm
but
trying to have too much, too little information, but I think just for our knowledge, it's just nice to see, okay, this is where we're focusing on, and these are the streets that are being addressed.
okay, and I'll send that over so you guys have it as well,
I appreciate that.
and then do that in the future.
That is helpful, that's a good point.
You call the roll, Lisa?
Tim,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, the motion carried. On to action item 4, approve wastewater treatment plant upgrade payment.
Payment, correct, Danielle?
This is a payment, yes. It has been reviewed by the engineers and everything on there, this was completed at this point. And I believe that Denise is on Zoom. I apologize, I can't tell if you have questions for myself or her.
Give us a percentage of where we're at completion wise.
Yeah, I think we're right around 78, 79%.
That's correct.
Oh, geez.
Thanks, Denise.
Denise, what's our time frame looking like then, since we've got that percentage, are we still?
Well, they're supposed to look at their schedule again, but the one that we have now is January 11th. We just had our field meeting this past week, and even though we are getting things installed and we are making good progress, we are still missing like a fitting in every single run of piping or something. I mean, there's like no complete system, not due to LaSalle, but due to the delivery, of the materials. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to gain any more time and get it done any sooner.
So I was kind of hoping you'd have something before the January date, but.
No, not at this time, no.
And we meet with Eagle on August 3rd, Wednesday. Yeah, 3rd. I was trying to think if that was for 18, sorry. About the extension and things. So as soon as we have information from that, I'll give you guys an update as well. And I did ask LaSalle at our progress meetings, and they're going to attend that meeting with Hogemeyer as well, to make sure that at that meeting, we have a very realistic deadline. Because again, I don't want to have to go back to Eagle and say, okay, thanks for that extension, we need another one.
You said Eagle is gonna be there, or you get,
It's with Eagle,
it's
yes.
with Eagle, so
Yeah,
all
it'll
parties
be-
involved will be there
Correct.
on site.
We're doing a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
We'll still rarely attending meetings, so in person. I should clarify in person.
I'll make a motion then to approve contractors pay app number 16 in the amount of $323,142.27. And the engineer's invoice in the amount of $11,826.09 for a total payment of $334,968.36 in connection with the Village of Blissfield wastewater treatment plant project upgrade, and authorize the village administrator to execute all documents related to this.
You did it all in one last year.
20 years ago, maybe.
I'll support.
The motion and there's a support. Any other comments or questions? If not, you call the roll on that motion as presented, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, motion carried. Action item 5, approve posting of school resource officer.
Council. So we had a subcommittee created and Mr. Riley is here too if you guys have any questions for him. But Tim, Mike, Chief, myself, and then board members and Scott have been meeting and talking about the school resource officer. And looking at biggest thing, I would say most of our conversation has been around budget and the cost of everything. So there is a grant program out just released to the schools to help cover some of those benefits or that cost of a school resource officer. And the school at this time has agreed to fund the wages and benefits of a school resource officer. And what they are asking for from the village would be to fund the startup costs, which I currently are within our budget. We would have to do a budget amendment to move from where we're under budget in wages and move it to the appropriate funds. But we're projected to be about $50,000 under budget. And the startup cost, not including a vehicle, would be about $32,000. And that's their tactical gear, taser, uniform, training, things like that. So we're working within our already approved budget for this fiscal year. And what we would like to do at this point is get permission to post the position and start seeing if we can get somebody interested. And in the meantime, we would continue working with the school to get the official agreements drafted up and what that would look like, which you guys would then approve and review that as well. But if you have questions for myself or for Mr. Riley, or either of the individuals who sit on that panel, then let us know.
I do have some questions. Village employee or a school employee?
Village employee.
The village employee. So our treasurer would be cutting the check, so to speak. Lisa would be doing the HR portion of it. Is that
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And it would be structured that way for a couple different reasons, but they are a officer as well. So during the summer, when they're not at the school, they would work with us. And then if there was some kind of emergency, we would be able to utilize them. And there's a lot of crossover. If something were to happen at the school, they would call our officers here in to assist with that. And just the liability and the training and just everything the police department goes through, it makes more sense to have them employed through the village with our police department.
That would then entail the village to hire this person in conjunction with the school, or that, I'm assuming there would be that coordination of that.
Yeah, so I mean, Chief and I kind of have pretty similar mindsets when it comes to that, so I mean, I would put full faith and trust in him, that he would hire a qualified person. And a lot of our discussion has been centered around, are we gonna be able to find someone to fill that void? Because just like every other profession right now, there's not a whole lot of police officers knocking down the door, nor looking for jobs, so.
Would you guys come up with, do you think, I would think that you guys would have somebody on that particular kind of position with the school wanting to be there.
You would assume so, but I'm not one that assumes a lot of things anymore, so, we're gonna be,
I understand.
kind of do our best to be as confident as possible that, we had talked about potentially someone that, just recently retired, that wants to kind of get off the street a little bit, and, but it has to be someone that, is gonna be able to interact in a positive way with our kids. So I think that's the biggest thing that we're looking for, and, we really haven't talked about the interview process.
Right.
The chief would want myself to sit in on it. I'd be more than happy to sit in. But like I said, we're very fortunate, to have Officer Corey the last few weeks, and I think we talked a few meetings ago.
Right.
We're trying to be proactive.
He definitely has a personality for the school.
Yes, yeah, we're almost about a month away from the start of school, and we don't want to kind of be scratching our heads like, oh, we should have done this or that. So I appreciate Danielle and Mike and Tim, also our board members, Denise, Craig, and Mike, and especially Chief and Danielle for all their hard work. And it's not easy to coordinate meetings during the summer, but We've had a couple, and I think we're gonna have a couple more, and hopefully we can get something in place by August 29th.
The liability for the taxpayers after the initial startup, what would that be?
So we do replace tasers typically every 3 years. Uniforms are, it's not annual for you, it's usually as needed, correct? So I don't want to say a set time because it's going to vary a little bit by individual and what happens. So some of those costs that we would build in, but like I said, at this point, wages and benefits, the school is willing to pay that portion, which is the largest portion of the total thing.
So because this person would be a village employee, that's why you're saying, as part of our police force, if you will, that's where the other materials, like you're saying, the uniforms, the tasers, et cetera, that would be our responsibility.
Correct.
So let's just pretend that this officer is in place for 3 years, then again, you've got the benefits and the wages, and then we would still continue to do the outfitting, for lack of better words.
Yes,
with the
and
exception
I
of
would
our-
imagine too that, I mean, this is new.
Right.
So I would imagine we're gonna have a review and okay, what worked, what didn't, do we need to make adjustments to whatever that agreement is? But it would be formalized moving forward. Like at this point, we're just asking permission to hire and to post and even see if we can get somebody or have somebody that's interested while we kind of work out the details of what that'll look like. And you guys will be part of that when we get to that point,
But
but
I like to have
yes.
the detailed portion where a village employee versus a school employee, so I have that initially, as well as what the liability is for our taxpayers down the road. And I know you're cognizant of that, Scott. I know all this, it's just, I feel I need to ask those questions for clarification.
Yeah, no, and so that, the grant that they just kind of launched is good through 2027.
Oh, I hadn't heard 2027.
Yeah, so the other thing that we're trying to figure, because, that MD's famous for
No, I do
doing a
know.
grant with money that's sustainable, so we're trying to figure out ways that we can make this sustainable for the school district and for the village. We had talked about building those costs in, a little bit each year, that way it's not such a big hit on the taxpayers or for the district when it comes to that standpoint. And right now it's 50%, and generally a lot of times with those grants, what happens is, some schools will apply for 10 resource officers, like the city of Detroit, and they'll get 10 and we won't get any. Well, it states very clearly in this grant that this is gonna fund one resource officer, which makes me believe that they're gonna have, there's enough of a pool to at least fund one resource officer for each school district, versus in the past, it's kind of been free game, but kind of they based on, I guess who has the most need.
Right.
But I think we've learned from Uvalde and Oxford that it's not necessarily, the inner city or rural, not necessarily the inner city, a lot of times it could be the rural type of schools, which we fall into that category. So, like I said, I think it's a great opportunity for the district. I think it's a great opportunity for the village. It just kind of goes along with that partnership that we continue to strengthen as we go, so.
Thanks for answering the questions. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, the pieces kind of just did fall together, fortunately. I mean, we did a lot of hard work discussing it and trying to come up with solutions or ideas on how we can make it happen. And again, being cognizant of budget restrictions and limitations and whatnot. But for us to not have our full-time officer staffed or hired this year, we've been operating with a part-time officer that has saved us a little bit of money for the year that we can capitalize or utilize for the startup costs. So again, it's not adding to our budget, which I think a lot of people would have concern of. We all know that the police department is the biggest part of our operating expenses. So again, like Danielle had alluded to, like Scott had alluded to, having that potential grant from the state, I think this gives us a trial period to see if we can pull it off. And again, at least even if it's not a long-term thing, we can utilize it now to say, okay, let's do our planning for, a mass casualty incident or, like one that you talked about, the DEER program, or, the quote social social work aspect of it, at least it's something that we can train on, we can learn on, and we can capitalize, and even if it's not a long-term solution, it's something that we can use as a tool to guide us in the future, I guess. So, you know, having that extra money set aside this year to do the startup costs, the school willing to pay the wages, I think it all kind of came together, and I think that's what people are expecting is to see us combine those resources and try to save in terms of, you know, working together.
And then, oh, my apologies. Go ahead.
I think one more quick point that might kind of allude to that. From a taxpayer standpoint, right now, when we have an incident at the school where we call a police officer to come in, that's taking an officer off of the streets. When we visit the school, there's a paperwork process. It's a lot of time. And I know because, we had a couple incidents at the school, and the amount of time that they put in is pulling them away from their time out on the streets here in Blissfield. So this would give us an officer in-house that can handle all of that and keep everything kind of where it's supposed to be within the village. So
I'm assuming that with some of the formalization with the agreement, then our attorneys would be involved in, if necessary, between the school relationship and the village relationship.
Absolutely, yes.
And then as far as the vehicle is concerned, that will be part of the discussion being held as well.
Yes,
Responsibilities.
yeah, and we have briefly talked about some different things, and again, the school's been really great to work with us on that. I mean, they've offered, if they have a van we could utilize. We're purchasing a new police vehicle, so maybe in our ones getting repaired, maybe it's as simple as keeping that and not trading it in. So we are looking at that, but that's, again, working through all the details is something we couldn't get done before this, but we'll continue to do.
You gotta get this posting out. It's a little dance you have to do. You don't want to have too much formalization of it, but at the same token, those questions will be addressed.
Yes.
I understand.
and it's gonna be a working document, because we have some sample documents from other districts in the county that we've looked at. Those have all been vetted by the attorney, so no sense in reinventing the wheel on some of that stuff, but we'll still have, our attorney, obviously your attorney review the final document, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be a work in progress, so there's gonna be some give and take and some flexibility, but I'm confident in the relationship that Chief and I have, that we're not gonna have any issues with that part moving forward, so.
Exactly, and that was kind of your question regarding whether it's a village employee or school employee, and I think Chief and Mr. Riley have a good working relationship to say, it is a village employee, but the school does have rules and expectations, and Chief would highly, make sure that employee is gonna abide by the school's rules as well, and operate the way that they want to.
Thank you.
So we have a motion, recommended motion.
Move to post a full-time school resource officer position.
Support.
Moved and supported to post a full-time school resource officer position. Any other questions? Now you can call the roll.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, motion carried. Action item 6, approve surplus old pool reel and solicit bids.
Go for it, Danielle. Take anything you want from out there.
So
Sell it.
I don't really know how you guys have done this in the past, and I apologize, but I actually had a lifeguard came to me with this really good idea. We have the lane lines out at the pool. And they said, well, you've got this reel down at the old pool, we could just wrap it around that. So I went and looked at it actually with Brent, because I didn't know if I'd have to get in there, but it would not work for the lane lines, but it was a good idea. But it is pretty good shape and it's sitting there. So I'm like, Brent, what could we use this for? And I'm like, why don't we sell it? So I did look it up, and brand new they sell for $9,600, and I know it's not brand new, but I was hoping that maybe somebody would bid on it, and then I'm not gonna lie, I'm hoping that it's enough to buy a lane line reel. But I do not, in the whole scheme of that, like really, I don't want it to just sit there and rot and waste, because it is a real, there are old pool covers that I think look like they're junk and tore up and are probably not worth anything, but they could take those off and use it. So again, I don't know if this is how you've done it in the past. I don't know if you guys want me to do it different in the future, let me know, but I would like to surplus it and try to get some bids for it and sell it.
If it's just sitting there, I don't see why we couldn't.
Yeah,
It's not being utilized for anything, and
and
it's,
we don't have any use at all that I'm aware of, so.
Do we utilize the lift chair that was donated at the new pool? Is that the same one that was at that pool, or did, or will
No.
we still have that as well?
Maybe down the basement.
Because, I mean, that was pretty new too, and that was generously donated by a few local residents, and that lift chair is something that can be used, a handicap lift chair to get people in the pool. That would be something in that surplus.
Okay, yeah, I was not even aware of
That
it.
thing, yeah, that thing was
Oh,
practically brand new, and we could probably spend a year at
okay.
the old pool with that, and that.
So I can look into that and maybe see if Brett can let me in, or if he knows where that's at, and we could bring that back to you. I don't have any information on the chair, excuse me, the chair, but if I'm with you, if it's
I would say
something
if
that's
it's something
sitting
that's-
there,
yeah, and it's worth something,
yeah, I
might
agree,
collect it, so, yeah.
especially before it just sits there and rots. Cause I know the chair at the pool currently is new, right?
Yes, so anything,
Yeah.
anything worth any value in that barn, whatever that old pool house,
Okay,
I would say have at it, because it's not being utilized.
Marketplace.
well, I don't know. if we
I
can do
don't
that, but.
We used to do random, you know, surplus auctions or whatever, down at the DPW, we have bikes, things like that, you know, maybe once every couple of years or whatnot, but the way online sales right now, that's just easier, I would say, have at it. I'm sure somebody it's gonna get it out there and probably earn us a little bit more money, just put it online and say, yeah, come do that.
Right.
I move the surplus the pool cover Rio solicit bids to purchase.
I'll support.
Moved and supported to move the surplus pool cover, real solicit bids to purchase.
Can we friendly amendment that anything that's
chair.
utilized under?
Do we actually need that? Friendly amendment?
Yeah, I would, if you're wanting to give us approval today, yes,
We're just adding anything else that we would like
yeah.
surplus.
And we can look into it. I'll let you guys know what all it ends up being too, if you decide to be done.
Add other items to surplus sale. You can call the roll, Lisa.
Barb,
Yes.
Jerry,
yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, that motion carried.
Quick question, Bob, I guess that would hopefully go towards pool, recreation, whatever, back towards your general budget.
It would, I guess what I would recommend is that go to the appropriate fund. So if it's all pool, I think it should go to pool.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Action item 7, approve answer to complaint on quiet title.
I will try to help you guys the best I can with this. I did get this request from our attorneys and they were not able to be here tonight. So I will answer the best I can. Hopefully we can take action. If not, I will tell you that I would recommend we table it because I don't know a lot about quiet titles. But my understanding is there is a right of way off of High Street. It's an old right of way that's actually being utilized by or definitely encroached upon by the neighbors of it. And there's no utilities in there. They're trying to sell the property behind it, which has access off of, yes, Main Street, thank you. But when they pulled the title insurance, it pulled this right away and it's kind of throwing a wrench and making things more complicated. So they are trying to take that over so that they can clear all of those issues up and work through it. So they did notify our attorneys as the village attorneys, just requesting that the attorneys respond to them saying that we have no issues and we do consent to the requested release of that right of way. Again, if you have questions, I will try my best to answer them.
As I read through that, it looked like about a 30-foot wide alley, what was gonna be an alley at one point that had
Yeah, I
access.
don't know if it's an alley or if it was going to be a road, I'm not sure. I had actually looked at this with Brent and Holly back, it's been a long time.
Okay.
And initially, when they came to the village, they were told they'd have to do the vacation, and we talked about that process. And then they decided to go this route, but at that time, we identified that we have nothing, there's no use, no way to develop it or anything.
I read through that whole legal document,
Yeah,
and I mean, it goes clear back to David Carpenter, and there's no claims on that, so. I mean, if the village has never used that as an alley for anything, I don't see why we would need to hang on to it.
yeah, and that was,
That's the neighborhood I grew up in, and those two lots south of where Millions used to live have always been vacant. And that was the access to get into that field where those two properties abut, so.
okay.
Obviously, it was probably gonna be platted at one time.
That's what I thought is, I almost
Yeah.
thought they were gonna develop that property back there and that was gonna be like a secondary access so that you'd have two different access points, because I know a lot of times, you know, for fire and emergency services, they're gonna want in and out so they're not backing up or flipping around. And
Right.
that's what it looked like to me, but I literally have no idea. And I think it's probably been so long that anyone's looked at it.
You said, we were talking about that drain that leads into the river that goes through the park. Do we know if that goes through there? The county drain doesn't go through there?
It is, so originally I thought it was the extension of the alley that runs off of Main Street back to the Legion. When you look at that map that's in there, it looks like it's on the next lot to the north.
Okay,
So,
Here's my concern with it. It's a 33-foot right of way. Generally, you need a 66-foot right of way to have a roadway put in there. So you would need cooperation or whatever from that abutting property owner to the south to make that access or that egress be a technical road for us to actually install it. But does that limit that property in the future to be developed because we sign off on that? You know what I mean? I guess, is it the cart before the horse or for the cart? Because if somebody were to develop that at some point, you're gonna need an easement for utilities for the roadway, et cetera. But that's also dependent upon the other half of that right of way coming together. I don't want to limit ourselves in the future for future development because we would probably need to have an easement if that ever is developed. So why would we release the easement now?
and you can't extend that easement, but I mean, the homes are right there. There's no way. I think one of the homes is a foot off of the existing 33-foot easement. I mean, it's right there. And that home, I think, has been there. It's not a newer home at all. I do get what you're saying, Mike, and I don't know. I think when however that was developed or built before, we kind of, if we were looking at the future, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot there because there's just no way. You'd have to buy those lots and tear those homes down, or at least one of them, but not saying we should do that by any means.
But so there's two empty lots on South Main Street that have total access to that field, because that's where the
Correct.
farmers go in and out to.
Correct, yes,
Yeah.
but Mike is correct, like if they develop it, they're gonna have to figure out, they're only gonna have that one access off of Main, and then they're gonna have to create a loop or something, or it's going to be a cul-de-sac or a dead end, whatever they do there. We'll have to work with them on that if they develop, they won't have that 2 points that they can go in and out of
But
that
see,
they would normally.
as this map shows, that alley has access off of South Main.
Which map are you looking at there, Jerry?
It is exhibit sketch of descriptions, it's page,
43?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
so I don't, is there access to that alley off of High Street? I don't see where that shows that. It looks like it just abuts those 2 properties on High Street, but the alley accesses off of South Main.
Correct. And that's my point, is you've got half of a quote road width easement, right, Brent? I mean, that's where we would develop that. You would have the access, the access would be off of South Main across from that Legion. alley.
So the map, I have this issue too, so the map is not correct though, that's not what it is now. The easement actually, there is that out, they're not requesting it for the alley off of Main, they're requesting that little triangle piece, which now, the way that it's developed, when you pull it up, goes straight out to High Street.
Is that right where Quick Street comes into High? It's on the other side there, isn't it?
On the left
We're
side,
down
yes.
closer
It's-
to
Yeah, on the south side of High Street, where Quick comes in.
Yes, it is, yes.
It's right there.
So they're asking just for the triangle.
Yes, they're
Landlocked
asking,
like they
yeah,
join.
they're asking for that triangle
Not the
weird
alley.
piece, not the alley off of Main.
Okay,
They're asking about the triangle pieces, landlocked like they join the north and claim.
okay, then that makes
Right,
sense.
yeah, sorry.
That's about 30-foot wide there off of High Street.
Right, yeah,
'Cause there's
because
never been
even that
anything there, but I-
because that triangle, I said it was, I'm like, that's not even right away, it's got a lot,
This is that
Which-
triangle.
right, but it does extend out to the road there, and that's where I'm like, the neighbors have built there because it's such a weird area that there's no way you could develop between them.
That is odd.
It is super weird.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Cause I was really confused when they first came to us about this, because if you go to the current county map, it doesn't show it as that triangle.
So what did so with the motion is to move to authorize the village attorneys to respond to the request.
So the attorneys are requesting approval from you guys to say that we don't have utilities there and we have no use, that we consent, we're not saying they can't do it because a water line's there or future development or whatever. That's, so that the attorneys are just asking your permission. And like I said, you guys are uncomfortable with this, I am not the expert on this. So I would, if you have questions, I mean, we can defer to the attorneys and have them here to answer those questions.
But I think with the clarification that it's not affecting the Main Street, it eases it up a little bit.
Yes.
What, do we know what those homeowners? What their thoughts are on
Yeah.
it? One's
My-
already utilized it, I think you're
So
saying.
I will
Right.
tell you, one of them did come talk to me about it, and I provided the same information about a vacation in that process, and I told them that they would need to talk to legal counsel on their own. That's something I can't direct them what to do, so they did talk to an attorney. And then my understanding, because I did ask Phil this, I said, well, do these homeowners have questions? And Phil indicated that they've already consented to this. So, and I don't know if there's a second part to this that doesn't involve the village where they give some of that back to them, and because my understanding is the millions are trying to clear this up, because right now, when they pull the title insurance, it's not pulling that clean title insurance for the property for them to sell. But I don't know all the details of what they've worked out with those owners.
So I guess my question is that triangle somehow tied to that that lot on South Main Street?
I'm not sure I understand your question. To the Millions lot? Just through the,
Millions.
it's not, only through that right of way.
Millions lived. So that house right behind Ronnie's, that's where Millions lived when I grew up.
This one.
Yep.
So.
You can go to the podium, state your name and address.
Carl Studnicka, 209 Sherman. Who pays the taxes on this land?
Nobody right now, it's a right of way. So there's no taxes being paid.
You know, they lived.
I mean, if you're talking about the triangle, we have no reason to put utilities in there, no need for that. My concern was the alleyway, and there's a future potential growth, so, I mean, it would make sense to say, you know, yeah, sign off on the triangle, if that's what the issue is.
I'll make a motion to move to authorize the village attorneys to respond to the request consenting to the requested release. Support.
Moved and supported to move to authorize village attorneys to respond to the request consenting to the requested release. Any other questions, comments? You can call the roll, Lisa.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. That motion carried. We're on to reports. Administrative report, any questions for Danielle?
Is Laura gonna, I believe she's on vacation right now, Danielle, is she going to be submitting a report to us as Heather had done before for DDA Main Street?
Yes, I believe she was just planning to do similar to what Heather did, is she prepares reports for DDA and just sharing those, but I did not remind her to get that before she went on vacation, so that is my fault.
But we'll be seeing that material. come through
Yes.
as well. Okay, gotcha, thank you.
We on to Parks and Rec.
My report's right here. Thank you, council, Denise, thank you. Recapping here, some of the things we've done here in the last month. We just finished our 3-on-3 tournament and very successful again this year. It was a fully sponsored event. Exact totals aren't in yet. We're probably a little over $2,000 when we get all our bills paid. And it was, like I said, it was a totally sponsored event. We had a $500 donation also, sponsorship for that event in cash, plus Transcend Physical Therapy, Blissfield BP, Brown & Sons helped sponsor the event. So very successful again this year in our 5th year. So we'll plan it again next year. We're in the midst right now of doing our programming. We are registering for soccer, fall soccer. We're registering for football. That includes flag football, 3rd and 4th grade flag football, and 5th and 6th grade tackle football.
Did you work on those flyers? Because those are great.
Did I work on it
Yeah,
personally?
the flyers that were, is that the stuff that we were seeing that showed,
I didn't do that. I think I only did that.
they should go for the, on top of the sports signups and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, I think Danielle did that.
Well, did you?
Yeah.
They're very nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're nice. I was just curious, okay.
Adult co-ed softball will be starting the 2nd week in August. We're signing up for that also. Something new that we've developed, that Danielle developed, we can now pay online for these events and register online. So our technology is finally catching up, thanks to Danielle on that.
You alluded to that, and I think it's a Friday thing that you're starting to, people are already starting to
We have
utilize it.
more registrations in the first week than we ever have.
It's awesome.
I'm not even sure how many we're up to now, but I just sitting here got 2 more.
And that's for the sports.
Yes.
That's a
And then-
huge spiff.
Yeah, we've only had 1 individual come in and register here at the village office. Everything else so far has been online, and we have all sports
And they kicked them out.
registrations for it. So that has been huge. I think that it makes it more convenient for people, so they don't have to try to find time to come down here during our hours in their work schedule, and they can pay right online and they're good to go.
And helps out in the front office as well for that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and we're known for kind of being late registrations for all our different events. This the tendency, if people are busy, it's hard to get them here, so this helps immensely. So we're in the process of doing that right now. Blissfield and Tap's been a process of planning. That's gonna be August 13th downtown here. We've got vendors lined up. We have 3 bands lined up. We're selling tickets for that now. I've received another $1,200 for sponsorship. I got another $500 this weekend, which is gonna pay for our stage, for which I had actually got a better deal on than we actually had, so. So things are looking good. People are being very generous for sponsorship for these different events. A couple things that came up at our last Parks and Rec meeting. Pickleball is kind of a hot item again. It was about 5 years ago, then it kind of died out. Now it's kind of hot again. Daniel and I have talked, and we haven't really talked a lot about the tennis courts yet. We will. Tennis courts are in bad shape again. They're gonna need some help. So we had a resident who used to be on Parks and Rec, Don Chappie, has come in and talk about putting lines down for pickleball on our courts now. And Daniel and I have talked a little bit about this. Do we wait and see if we redo the courts? It's probably back when we redid them last time. I tried to get pickleball courts, but it was kind of denied by our former village administrator at that time for whatever reason. But I think we could probably do it. I talked to this person last night. Even if we don't paint them at this time, we could stripe them with some kind of, there's all weather tape we can put out there. Just peel it up when we want to. But we've got all the equipment. We bought that a few years back for pickleball.
Well, what was the logic behind that? Wasn't it because it was a tennis association grant or something like that, that we had that happen, that we couldn't stripe it as such? I mean, I'm all for it because we don't need three tennis courts, so if we utilize one of the courts, I just want to make sure that there's a reason.
No, I think it's just cost at the time. It was like $350 at the time. It was this.
Well, I've never seen all 3 used at one time.
No, this won't hamper any
If
tennis.
we do 2 in one pickleball, I think it would make complete sense.
Yes, exactly. So I'd like to move on that if it's just for the fact that we put tape down for now until we decide what we're gonna do with the
Yeah,
courts.
my only concern that I shared with Eric is we have in this current budget year, we actually have reached out to a few companies to get some quotes, and Brent helped me. He met them on site and showed them the courts so that they could actually see them. So we did get some quotes just for budgetary purposes, and it's in this upcoming budget request. At this point, I don't know if it's something we can afford or if it's a top priority for council, but I don't want to see us go pay to paint it and then turn around and repair the courts and then have to repaint it. I would rather than wait to do something permanent until we decide if it's moving forward or not. And that was my only concern with Eric, but what I feel very strongly about is I don't want the Parks and Rec board to feel that their recommendations are being just ignored either. I want them to understand that we do value their recommendations. I don't want to put bad money after good is my whole thing.
Sure. And if you've been out to the tennis courts, and I think I might have been on the board, but that was it when we built those courts. I can't tell you what year that was. You remember, Mike? There's some design flaws in that court, and if anyone ever wants to go out and look at them with me, I can show you what they are. And right where these design flaws are, they're all the way down the courts on both sides. That's where the cracks begin. It almost looks like a little gutter. How we fix that without tearing them all up? I don't think we do. Last time we sealed it, we didn't actually put anything over the top of it, we just sealed it. And it lasts for 3 or 4 years, but with our winters, it's tough too. If you ever have a crack in it, it just spreads, and Brent knows this, right, where the nuts go, the poles go, the cracks around there too, so.
How much use get out of
I use it all the time. It's good.
you by yourself?
Yeah, but the school uses it a lot too.
My family goes out there.
The school, yeah, school uses it quite a bit for gym classes, different things, I know. Honestly, though, I think it's the usage has been more the last few years. I noticed more people out there playing. 4 courts worth, no.
The lighting needs work too.
Lighting needs some issues, yeah. I mean, to talk to you about that for a while. Just
Their eyes
hit and
burn
miss.
out, yeah.
Someone come on, some, what do you think? So, yeah. I think we got the facility out there. We need to, make sure it's updated. The lights are awesome. I think we got a lot of pickleball players out there if we.
Dawn was very inspirational. She has a
Yeah,
passion, she has a passion for it.
Dawn was on our board for quite a few years, so we miss her, trying to get her back, so.
Tell us about the pool.
Yes,
How much
pool-
time you spending out there?
Pool was next. One of the first things I did at the pool was revamp the concession stand a little bit. What I did, we added a few things which paid for the additions I made. We had some shelving out there. About $78 worth of shelving I got from Gilroy's. They gave us a great deal on it. Paid for it in a day with ice cream bars that we bought from Sam's. The concession, I think Danielle can agree that the concession stands made quite a bit of money. Just with the additions we've had, just the displaying of the different things. You might not think that's a big deal, but
It is.
the customers of people visiting the pool have
Are
really
they,
appreciated it.
are the participants happy with it? That's, yes.
Yeah. So, and that's a constant. I think there's more improvements that need made. That's gonna be one of my winter projects is get some kind of budget put together and bring it to you guys to see what we can do. It doesn't have to be a restaurant, but it can be like a fire or a.
Are other food trucks coming out there then here?
We've had 1 or 2, we haven't had any real consistent
Nothing
food trucks out
I
there.
know
I think
every Tuesday or
the
every
Shivers,
Wednesday.
not Shivers Shack, what's the Ace people?
Frozen Paradise.
That's it.
And then what, do you have an idea of the numbers, like of memberships, family memberships or whatever, or how our numbers compare as to last year to where they are this year?
I don't have that number in front of me. Do you have it?
We have 695 memberships this year. I think that's pretty close to what we had last
I
year.
was saying about 650, I thought last year, something.
Yeah, it's not far off at all.
Nice.
I'm not sure if we're just under,
Okay.
but right on track. And then, the pool it's definitely starting to slow down now, but it definitely started off really strong. We're still getting individuals that go for, just pay the daily fees as well. And then, like Eric already said, concessions are doing really well. In fact, I think that definitely within the budget, we're going to break out concession expenses, and then we were trying to decide on revenues, but I think it'll be easier to keep the revenues the same and then just do a report from Easy Facility showing what our concession sales were. That I'm still learning, and then as I learn, trying to teach Eric as well, so hopefully we'll get better at providing that data to you guys, so.
And coming in into the middle of the pool seasons.
Right. How is the schedule working with Mr. Sills and the lifeguards? Everybody's showing up. There's not any of the big walking issues.
Yeah, I think this is probably our best year. I've really been involved a lot last previous years, but I talked to Brian quite a bit. He's our manager out there, Brian
Right.
Sills.
Right.
And I'm on we have a link, a Facebook link or a texting link that everyone chimes in. If you can't work, someone will pick up that shift.
Gotcha.
I think it's been probably our best year in that aspect. I think Danielle can agree too.
We've had a few, we have a group meet So the guards will say like, hey, can somebody cover my shift on Wednesday? And the other guards pick it up. So communication has been really huge. And I have gotten nothing but compliments on our guards. They have been, and managers, they've been really good this year. We've only closed one day. It was a Sunday, actually. We closed early because of all the storms that were coming in and out. And we had one person, so we did close then, but otherwise we've been open. We've been fully staffed.
Chemicals and all that has been A-okay, no big walking issues with chemical, too much, too little, any of that.
That was gonna be my question.
No, so
We
it
ran
was,
into that.
that was a little bit rough getting started, and since Eric's been here, we've been pretty balanced out. I definitely was at the beginning a little bit of trial and error, a lot of help from DPW, and then they've been great. I mean, anytime we need help, and what I told the managers is, when in doubt, just turn it off and call DPW, because they know better than us and we don't wanna break it. And then Brent,
Stuff or two then, Brent, I mean, you're not having to go out as much and facilitate.
No, just periodically, no.
And I've we've thought this has been a big subject with the managers I've talked to quite a bit with. Some of them are intimidated by that room out there. They're afraid of something up, and it is very
Well, the
intimidating out there.
chemical room,
Yeah,
oh, I'd be afraid of that thing.
yeah, it's like NASA out there. That's why I like Nora to run that too. But we've talked, like I said, talked quite intensely about the room out there. And do we want to go forward with, this is something we'll discuss over the winter with the managers and all the different hands in that, or just roll out to DPW? You know, with the exception of chlorine and stuff like that in there. So I just, that's their opinion on it.
Pool parties, any pool parties? I know that was something that you guys are hoping for the Mondays.
yeah, we have 7 pool parties booked already for the year.
Nice.
So they, on Mondays, can book private pool parties. 5 to 7's definitely been the prime time. I think we only have one more in that time frame, I believe, left this summer, and then we've got quite a few 2:30 to 4:30s.
Nice.
But yeah, that's been a big hit as well.
What I want
And
to do.
then I do have to just give kudos to DPW too. They cleaned out that chlorinator really well, and after that, it seemed like that thing was running brand new. So that helped, and Brent's got that on his schedule to have him or his guys go out there and clean that. And that's just going back to the chemicals. I think that helps just feed everything through better and helps keep us balanced.
Any other questions for Eric?
Yeah, I got a couple more things to add here. To Mike's question, I've been going out on the weekends after work, going out and talking to the lifeguards at Brian Stills quite a bit. Working out there all weekend this weekend, so. And like what Daniel said, I think we got the greatest lifeguard staff we've had. The key is, I really believe, is having adult management out there. Yeah, that's the big key. And it's worked really well this year. And that's the goal. I've talked to people, and Jackie, I've talked to, we do want to get a volunteer committee coming in the middle of the year. It's kind of hard to do, but I've talked to numerous people. I think we've definitely got to roll that next year. And let them help us with ideas. The potential's through the roof out there. I'd like to get a sponsorship for the pool. That's my next goal, so. Try to make that next step. Get some more money rolling in, but yeah, it's pretty exciting out there right now. If you haven't been out there, I'll see you this weekend, because I'll be there all weekend, so. Yeah, Winnie.
I'm just gonna say that's really nice to hear. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
It was right.
I think we've turned.
A lot of things start out rocky. We learn from mistakes. Go
I
forward.
think we turned the opinion a little bit.
Good.
On the pool this year, and that's a big part of that's Danielle, obviously. So.
Yeah, Danielle, you rocked it. Starting things out on a real positive note.
Well, thank you, but I did not do it alone.
Well, I understand. Your cohorts over here too is.
Yes,
Cohort
Lisa,
over there as well.
DPW, the managers,
Yes.
everything, the lifeguards.
It's nice to hear a positive spin with the pool.
But back to concession again, we've got the plumbing there first thing. The gas sink was laying on the floor by the plumbing. It wasn't hooked up, but, you know, can make it, take that next step without getting too crazy, I think. Maybe a hot dog or pizza or kind of thing there next year. So, I mean, I've been loading up at Sam's $400 or $500 worth of weekly, blow right through it, so. That's not having outrageous prices, we're making money, that's their goal, is to make money. So we've added ice cream, we've added, different things, Crustables, stuff like that, so. Going by the recommendations that people are asking for, so. So, yeah, it's going well, it's exciting.
Thank you.
To the library. To the library minutes and documents, sent quite a few over. We have the water treatment plant report. Any questions from Laura? Moving on to council discussion.
I just want to thank Brent, Danielle, and also Andy Railroad for, they did that crossing, which a lot of people didn't know about, unfortunately, which is kind of scary, but they did work together with the railroad. We got a sidewalk across the tracks there, so that leads to the depot, which, thank you for doing that. That worked out, and it's something that, again, working together, we saved a little bit of money to accomplish something, so thanks for working.
And definitely something our community needed. I remember a while ago, an older woman. You remember that, Mike?
Yeah.
She came and she spoke. She had difficulties going over those tracks. So,
And I guess leading off of that, it's nice having you guys here, but also, hopefully in the future, we're talking personnel policies, procedures, whatnot. I would like to see the chain of command. I know this council kind of likes having the supervisors here, but it's also their time that they are kind of giving back to working here. Again, I know their salary and whatnot, but if we could come up with a comp solution or something like that, I think it's only fair. I don't think you guys should have to sit through all these meetings every single week. Have at it if you want to, but again, I don't think it's something that should be expected, or you should be compensated for some way for that. That they're working their normal hours on top of sitting through one of these meetings. Maybe it's something that we could figure out to say, okay, you sat through this meeting for 2 hours. If you need 2 hours to yourself during the week, I think that's fair.
I have a question. Planning Commission, I haven't seen any paperwork coming from them. Danielle, don't know what's going on. Are they meeting, not meeting? How are things going with that team?
So they did not meet last month, which was, we had no business to go over. They met the month, there's been a few we canceled just because we have no new items for them. And I'm really big on not meeting just to meet. So statutorily, they're required to meet at least 4 times a year. They have met 3 already this year. The last meeting that they held was the month before, where they did recommend the capital improvement plan to you guys. I did submit in one of my weekly summaries that to you guys to look over. If you want me to resend that, I'd be more than happy to. And then that will be coming to you guys in the budget process and at your budget work sessions as well, again, to tie back into our actual budget and things, so.
And nothing as far as the ordinances or anything that could be looked at during their time frame?
They did do a couple ordinances earlier this year that you guys have already approved. They did the 3, and I don't even off the top of my brain remember right now. And then they are going, I don't want to give them too much right now because we're going to start getting into the comprehensive plan, and I didn't want to have them trying to juggle too much, but ordinance revisions is on my list still, and it's something we need to work on. Right. And they will definitely be a part of any ordinance revision that's tied to the zoning. Again, there would be statutorily required too, but and if there's other ordinances that they can provide input, then we would include them.
And then,
I agree with Gwen though. I mean, we don't want people to meet just to meet, but again, we want these boards to feel like they're influencing and they're being heard and whatnot. Again, there's a lot going on that they could discuss. We're talking RRC, we're talking the comprehensive plan update. I mean, we're already behind the eight ball on that one. That's every 5 years, that's
it seems like
2022.
I agree, but the staff has to provide that, and staff is, we're stretched very thin, so that's the,
But that's required by law, I believe that that comprehensive plan is updated this year. I mean, it's it's every 5-year plan and it has to be done, so we have to get on it.
But how do you get on it when you?
well, McKenna is doing that, and again, we did put that on the back burner with them because the TIF plan was so much more critical. So we will be working with them on that and moving that forward. So really the comprehensive plan is just a matter of me working with McKenna and keeping them moving along on it and progressing, not so much of me doing the comprehensive plan. The ordinance revisions and that stuff is staff preparing the information for them.
But planning commission definitely should be a part of that process as well. I mean, they should be reading those, those updates as McKenna provides that. They should be giving input, giving recommendations. That's critical for that.
They've not done anything with it to provide updates, but yes, I agree.
And I can't recall which meeting it was, regarding Mr. Schaefer with Generac. I know we had made a motion about him to send a letter or do something. And I was just curious if you could provide perhaps the status or provide you with the status, you can let us know via email regarding the status of Generac. I'm assuming that he went forward with our recommendation.
I know that Lisa and I pulled some information for him and provided it a couple weeks back, but I will let him know that you would like an update and have that come from him, just because I don't know and I don't want to speak
I
out of
don't
turn.
understand it. The same thing with the those monies, the trusts, the status with the trusts. If we could have an update on that as well, please. Thank you.
I'm just gonna echo Gwen's comment or response to the email about budget work sessions. I just assumed do that here. Park was a nice setting to be in, but it caused a lot of issues for folks not being able to hear, even though we had a sound system that was still not optimal for residents to be able to hear totally what was going on. So I just assume we stay here.
All right, we're moving on to public comment. Items not on the agenda. Adjournment, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, the public comment item's not on the agenda. We did
okay.
receive a written comment.
Okay, sorry.
That I apologize, I
I'll
was
rescind my
typing
motion.
Did you get this earlier?
I put it out there for you.
Do you need me to read it? That's what I normally do is read the.
Go ahead and read it then.
Okay. Good evening, Blissfield Council. My name is Louis E. That's good. Thank you. I live at 460 North Lane Street. I have been a resident of this village since 1977. I have a concern to address with the council on our recycle program. Currently, the cost for participation in the recycle program is $136 a year. If you use this service for only a portion of the year, the cost is still $136. There are some residents, including myself, who only use this service a portion of the year. The 4 or 5 months gone from Blissfield continue to be billed at a cost of approximately $971 per month. When inquiring with Stevenson Recycle Company about doing a month-to-month service, I was told the contract is with Blissfield and they would not be able to do partial or suspend services unless Blissfield Council requested this in the contract. On behalf of those Blissfield residents who winter elsewhere a portion of the year, I would like to see if this option can be included in the next contract the village has with Stevenson. If no compromise is possible, I will terminate my participation in the recycle program and just request garbage service. I am trying to be environmentally conscious, but need some help from the village to continue. I thank you in advance for your consideration in reviewing this contract issue with Stevenson. Sincerely, Louis and Angie.
Well, point. Nice letter. I think it's something we could look at.
Yes.
When's the contract up? Couple years?
we did, I believe it's a 5-year
Oh, okay.
is what we did. And I think that was renewed right before I had come on last year.
Because they gave us a rate break, I think, if we.
Well, it increased, like, the bag tags was around the same
Right.
time where every July 1, there's an increase that's
Yeah.
smaller than the double they did initial fee. But I can still pull that contract and see, or reach out to them to see if they would be open to an amendment and what that would even look like. I don't
Ask
know.
about the amendment, see
Good
if
idea.
that's a possibility.
Sure, is that, I mean, if they're willing and
Yeah,
open to having that discussion, at least on the amendment, that would be a possibility instead of waiting till the end of that term.
Anything else?
I'm sorry.
You'll get back with the resident though?
Yes, I
Okay,
will.
thank you. All right,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
move to support and adjourn the meeting. You call the roll, Lisa?
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.